A presidential token sale, Uniswap debuts its Unichain, and did we finally get a good crypto game? All this and more in this week's Collective Shift weekly recap, actionable insights and a breakdown into the crypto market in under 30 minutes. Today I'm joined with research analyst Simon. Matt's taken some hard-earned time off. Maybe you can share some of your background with the audience who may not know who you are and how you've joined the team recently.
Yeah, sure, Nick. I'm filling in for some big boots today, that's for sure. But I've been a research analyst now at Collective Shift for I'm coming on to three and a bit months now, I think. So obviously had a lot of time in crypto before that, but I don't think we need to talk about my background too much. But I'm part of the Collective Shift team and happy to step in and talk about all things the markets this week, mate.
Perfect. Yeah. Getting into a quick market update as we usually do. I think the key theme here has been, even though we've had a bit of a pump, Bitcoin is still relatively range bound. We were just talking before about how crypto remains in this 25% sideways action here. And you can really see it on the 3 month chart that I'll chuck up on the screen now, because I think this really says it all, really, in where we are in the market. This is the 3 month chart. We can see we dipped below that 50K very briefly for, I think, probably, to be honest, minutes or hours there. And we can really see that we're really yet to exit this range here. So this is probably going to be the key theme. And as we head up, I think it's less than 30 days now into the election. To be honest, I'd be surprised if we see any huge action in the coming days. Really, I think all eyes are just on who's going to win. And on Polymarket, the odds just keep flip flopping. I'm not sure if you got any other thoughts there, Simon, on
Yeah,
where
I
you
think
see the market at the moment?
everyone's got into the seasonal excitement. I guess October has always been a big meme, and currently I'm pretty sure October is up by a fair amount now based on this recent price action, but the market is still waiting for that uncertainty of the US election for sure. I think that's such a big thing that's blocking us, but I don't know. I'm feeling everyone's feeling really bullish, and everyone really wants the prices to rocket, but yeah, eyes are on that. As we kind of talked about many times before, is that Trump winning is obviously a big catalyst for a big push forward. Harris winning could be a temporary speed bump, temporary pullback potentially. We're not really sure. And that's the uncertainty that I think everyone wants out of the way before I think everyone really gets excited about the space.
Yeah, if you want to learn more, I guess, about how the election is impacting the market, we put out a good newsletter insight last week. So we'll attach that to the show notes as well. So if you are curious on the different scenarios and how it may play out, just check out the newsletter there and we got you covered. But probably keeping on topic of US presidents here, Trump is actually, I'm not sure if you saw this, Simon, launching the token sale for World Liberty Financial this week. So absolutely pinnacle day, I think, in crypto markets. Not every day you see ex-president or potential president of the United States actually become so affiliated with the cryptocurrency themselves. So it's not technically Trump's coin per se, but the Trump team are pretty much advisors and influencers really backing a lot of this project. So they do get tokens from the total supply. They're actually looking to raise, I think, 300 million in this token sale. So this is going to happen probably today or tomorrow, and they're looking at a valuation of 1.5 billion. This is on some, I think, documents obtained by the block on Thursday. So huge presidential token sale, and I'm not sure if you think they're actually going to come close to getting that amount of money they think that they want to raise, but 300 million really quite out there, and really shows that they're not aiming low by any means.
I think the interesting thing that people have forgotten is that Trump is a businessman first and a president second. And so him venturing into different businesses is just given more highlight now that he has been a president and he could be a president again soon. So people need to remember that. He does know how to make money through businesses. And so this is just another avenue he's doing it. I think the token sale is very interesting how he goes about that. Obviously, there's always, law issues in the US. So he's going to have to, manage that. If he's president, obviously he can push through whatever he wants in many ways. Does it deserve that valuation? I don't know. It's very bullish for Aave, I feel, because it's basically a front end kind of for Aave. So I think that's great for Aave. I think it's great for the DeFi space in general. And it will onboard more people. Like if Trump's a trusted name in the US, or at least to 50% of the population over there, he's a trusted name. So it's got to be bullish for the space if he can actually pull off a DeFi protocol that is effectively using Aave's liquidity, but that brings eyes to the space. It brings retail to the space. I think it's a net good if he pulls it off.
Yeah, I've kind of flip flopped. Initially, I was very kind of disappointed in that this token sales actually went through, given the history, I think, of the founders that were working with the Trump team, because they had something called Doe Finance, which got exploited in July, and it kind of give a few red flags in the way they talk. And I think, having various different groups before. But the one thing I was really excited, as you mentioned, Simon, was Aave, probably the big winner here. This was actually a temp check on a proposal in the governance forum to launch World Liberty Financial with like an Aave v3 instance. So this is huge. As you said, it's not like a fork of Aave. I think they're just using it as their source of liquidity and one of the biggest DeFi, platforms they'll use. So essentially, they'll be trying to abstract a lot of the confusion or the complexity of using things like Aave, probably even other DeFi primitives. Who know if they use Uniswap, for example. But that's probably the thing that I'm also excited, Simon, is if they can actually provide an abstracted, easy to digest way to get involved with crypto and DeFi, then that is definitely a net win for the space. Did notice that it was actually going to say that it had a KYC front end potentially through some of the documents here. So that's going to be maybe another example of what the future looks like with maybe more whitelisted, but that really brings the argument of is it really DeFi then if you have a KYC, gated front end? A lot of the purists will probably stick their nose up at it, but at the end of the day, they're helping onboard more people into crypto, which hopefully they can do, and this token sale goes off without a hitch, really.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the main thing we want here is we want to make sure that this is a legit project with real outcomes for its users because there's a lot at play here with the Trump name blasted on the top of it, I think.
Shifting gears, I'm not sure if you saw the the Satoshi documentary that aired on HBO this week. I'm actually going to be watching it maybe tonight. I've recorded it, even though I've heard that may not be worth watching at all. Seems a bit like a money grab, a bit of a low effort there. They named Peter Todd. He was actually not in the Poly market names of people who could be Satoshi. There was a big market on trying to guess who HBO was going to name. So a lot of people who tipped other in the Poly market, won handsomely. They didn't really have any definitive claims at all, for Peter Todd being Satoshi. So in my mind, it was a bit of a nothing, burger, really. I think if Satoshi was going to be named, it's been a long time now that the evidence would have come forward, and I would have been very skeptical that HBO had some insider information that nobody else could find in the market. Did you watch it, Simon? Or are you going to give this one a miss?
I actually did start watching it, but I'd already obviously had the announcement via Twitter channels that they'd named Peter Todd. And so I actually found it just a bit of a not interesting documentary kind of thing. So I was like, well, I already know the punchline here. So I actually didn't end up finishing it. I think it seems odd that they chose Peter Todd because just of his age in general. That was my big takeaway. He would have been 23 when the white paper was written, I believe, is how old he would have been. I wasn't capable of doing that kind of stuff when I was 23, so maybe he was, but it just seems too far stretched for me as an answer. And I think it's a case of it really was, I guess we're in the crypto space, so we know it a bit more. It really came as an outsider looking in and giving their take on it. I guess, fresh eyes are always an interesting perspective. But for me, being a crypto insider, I guess to a degree, I just didn't find it a very interesting take on the space and a very interesting way of assessing it. And here's the kind of real truth. We've been looking for this for a long time. We've been trying to find out Satoshis for so long. If people on the inside of the crypto space can't figure it out, how are these people from HBO on the outside going to be able to figure it out? What kind of new information they're going to uncover that hasn't already been uncovered? So I get the feeling that we're never going to know now unless they randomly decide to come out and move money from that wallet. I don't think we're ever going to know now simply because everybody's tried so hard. It's such an interesting and compelling thing to try and find out. We haven't found out by now. We're not going to.
Yeah, I'm definitely on that side. The theory of it suggests that there's been a lot of incentive to try and find it out, and as you said, I highly doubt HBO have the alpha there to that everyone did or missed out. A lot of people probably wonder why is it so important. A lot of people would say that hey, we shouldn't really try to uncover who it is because obviously they had like an immaculate conception that Bitcoin was unidentified, and that's actually probably net positive for the space. At the end of the day, we cover it just because they control, I think, 5% of the total supply, or like a million Bitcoins, or somewhere in that round. So it's a tangible amount, really. And one of the overhangs that we have, if it was to be named or the Bitcoins do move, that would trigger a definite market, real shock and potential collapse there, with a lot of people that are following those wallets would panic sell, and that could lead to a lot of liquidations and a real big volatile movement. So probably good news that, hey, unlikely to be uncovered anytime soon, and hopefully remains anonymous as they intended to be. Not sure you've been following SEC stuff. As always, I like to keep my eye on how the SEC is doing. I saw they actually sued Cumberland, which is a market maker, as an unregistered securities dealer, and they talked. I think they mentioned Solana, Polygon, a few other cryptocurrencies. So this was something that I didn't really anticipate to see, but apparently the SEC have their end of, I think they got like up to September 30 or something, that they can actually, or they have it in a period where they try to enforce more during this time of the year. So crypto.com is also trying to sue the SEC. So more of the same, really, for me on that front, and probably highlights why the election is so important, because there's absolutely no consistency in a lot of this. And surprised to see Cumberland as a market maker, really sued, and they called out Solana again and Matic.
Yeah, well, the SEC are doing SEC things, which is constantly suing and trying to enforce by regulation by enforcement is the saying that everyone's talking about. They also put out a Wells notice, which is letting a company know that they're going to be potentially sued in the future. That was to crypto.com, and they fired back straight away with a lawsuit against them for not giving it the right direction. So that joins many other big companies in the US right now who are either being sued by the SEC or being given a Wells notice, and most of them are fighting back now. So it's a very interesting space to be. I mean, neither of us are lawyers, so we don't really understand exactly how it all works. But if every player is pushing back and they've got the money to push back these days and really fight these things, it's kind of a real question of how far can the SEC go. And again, Donald Trump has obviously already announced that he would fire Gary Gensler if he was made president. So obviously that would be a massive directional change. There's also directional change within the SEC itself, and some of the SEC board members are also talking about how poorly that they have managed the crypto space. So it's a bit of dissent within the SEC itself, which is a very interesting thing to see. So I feel Gary Gensler's days are over, regardless of who gets in, because there's just such a negative sentiment around him that why would he maintain his position there when it's just a win for either party to get rid of him? But who knows? This is a space that, I guess is not our expertise for sure. But the SEC continue to push through lawsuits.
Yeah, I saw it this week. There was I think SEC commissioner that went on CNBC or one of these massive US shows, basically said that it's been a disaster. The SEC has been a disaster, quote, for the space. So more pressure keeps on coming, and that's going to be a high point for the election. And we also forget that Uniswap was issued a Wells notice back a couple of months ago now, so we're still waiting to hear back from that. So very well, we actually could have one of the biggest DeFi brands that we'll talk about later, to really help spearhead some regulation. Finally, I also saw Stripe, just finishing up our industry news. They come out and they're accepting crypto, I think, payments for businesses. So this was something that they stopped, but they're saying now that customers can pay merchants using USDC or USDP on Ethereum, Solana, and Polygon. So this is kind of comical in a way, because as we just saw that, the SEC was suing Cumberland for, using Solana or Polygon and selling them. We see that, Solana, Polygon, they're these infrastructure that are widely used that Stripe is using. So they are, in commodity-like, and it's kind of interesting to see the SEC go hard against them. But then we have big names like Stripe starting to turn on their crypto payments again, which for me, just another big positive, with the likes of Visa and other big names really doubling down on cryptocurrency.
I think it's a good sign for sure that Stripe are going down this path, but it's also their, I guess, business strategy, because they realize there's a real threat coming their way through blockchain, and they can either fight it or try and embrace it and maintain some of their market share. So that's really what's going on here. I think in there it talks about, the transaction percentage that they take will be reduced because of this. So that's great. That means, they're finding efficiencies and they're passing it on rather than just, pocketing the extra money here, because there's competition. And so that's a great thing to see. It's a great win for consumers when prices start coming down for using services like Stripe. And I think it just makes good business sense. As we said, Visa are doing it as well. PayPal are definitely in board in the space massively. So there's all these big existing payment systems that are starting to use blockchain technology because they see the benefits it has, and they also see the competition. So they are having to react, and it's interesting to see them all react in such a positive way rather than trying to really fight it and trying to push regulation to squash it, which kind of has been happening in the industry. But I think now people are embracing it. They know it's here. They know it's here to stay. So do they want to, die wondering, or do they want to move forward and try and maintain market share? I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah, that big. A lot of people complain about cryptocurrency having no use case. This is actually a prime use case of a traditional big companies that were able to get away with higher percentages on card transactions because they could really, because they had such a big duopoly over the market. So this is one area that I'm actually really excited to hopefully see more innovation in. But perhaps getting into probably the biggest news item of the week, especially on the altcoin front, is Uniswap. They come out and announced their Uni chain. So this is going to be an Ethereum L2 that is DeFi focused, and it's using the Uniswap brand and is being led by Uniswap, but also Optimism, and was kind of co-created by a couple big companies in the space. So not sure where we want to get to here, Simon, but maybe your first thoughts on Unichain and whether it's, I guess, a net positive, net negative to the space. Were you surprised to see this announcement at all?
Not surprised, because there's always been, I guess, this underlying talk about how every app will have its own chain. That's kind of been part of the roll-up focus and push for Ethereum in general. So not surprising that they're there for the biggest project, protocol, whatever you want to call it, Uniswap being one of the first really to lean into this space and push it, because you need the big industries of the space to do that. So I'm not surprised. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, what do we want? We want to have, faster transactions, cheaper fees, easier user experience. And so this is basically trying to help push Uniswap in that direction, because Uniswap right now is convoluted because of all the L2s. And so this is kind of their way of trying to make it easier, I guess, is the simplest way to do it. Make it easier for retail to use it. And I think that is what we need. And this is direction forward. It's a huge win for Optimism and the OP stack. Again, I think Optimism is really starting to stand up as being the preferred super chain, I guess is the kind of word for it, isn't it? So I think that's got me really excited in the space. I think if we can get a leading super chain, that will therefore lead to some kind of standardization, because obviously people have to lean into the leading super chain. So I think that is interesting. That'll allow that liquidity to flow between these L2s easier, hopefully, once some standardization comes in place. So I really like it. I really like where it's going for retail. And at the end of the day, we want to build these things for retail to come into the space. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so Uni, obviously, probably the biggest brand name in crypto that you can get. I was initially, I'm not shocked, but my initial thoughts were, hey, this is kind of bearish for a lot of the L2s out there, because there was also another announcement by, I think, Paradigm, who were going to also announce the L2, which was missed during the week because of this big announcement. So I'm really thinking, hey, what does this mean for Arbitrum, the biggest L2 that is really focused on DeFi? It's carved out a DeFi niche. Really concerned then on how, I guess, Arbitrum can compete in the future with a uni chain, which is trying to absorb all of the DeFi liquidity in the market. So we saw that Arbitrum's orbits, which are kind of like Uniswap Superchain, a lot of these L2s essentially have these standards or these layer that basically all the activity, all the liquidity, all the value lives on. Polygon has what's called its AG layer. ZK Sync has something called like the ZK layer or something. Optimism has a super chain. Essentially just these standards that mean that if you use an app that's built on that network, you don't have to toggle different networks or jump through a lot of hoops. Everything just works in the background on that layer, and then you can have a nice user experience. So I really agree that, hey, Optimism really winning on this front. My biggest concern then is, what does this mean for ETH? So we know that Optimism is actually one of the biggest gas guzzlers, if you look at Etherscan, that consumes Ethereum gas. So now if we have a uni chain that wants to absorb a lot of this and probably move a lot more of that demand onto its own chain, hey, this probably could be a continuation of what Ethereum's already seen, with more and more of this activity moving off chain, and more importantly, probably the fees and the burn that isn't as high as would have liked, and it's kind of an unintended consequence of its roadmap of scaling via L2. So ETH probably still has a little more uncertainty on its impact in the short term, especially and especially bearish for some other twos, but probably bullish for Uni token, because as I haven't mentioned yet, one of the key innovations here would be actually using, I think, Uni token for I think some form of staking. So you'll be able to have more Uni utility, and who knows what that means in terms of generating now fees back to the Uni holders or Uni stakers. So big one here that is probably a bit underrated, because finally, is this going to be the end to the, I think, governance token meme era for some of these DeFi coins or these L2 coins especially?
Yeah, I'll lean in more to talk about bearish for other layer twos. And I think, yeah, you're right in that it does put pressure on other chains, other layer twos to actually show their purpose. But we are still really in the experimenting phase of what layer twos are and what they're supposed to be. So having Unichain in existence is basically another iteration, another attempt at trying to figure out how to make this work and work really well. So I think the more innovation we have like this, and a big player like Uniswap getting into it, is just good for the space, because we're getting closer and closer to something that works really, really well. Does that mean something like Arbitrum dies? Maybe. So yes, that's bearish for an Arbitrum token for sure, but we are still in that innovation phase. We're still trying things, and I think that's where we've got to get to have more retail, more use cases, is continue to innovate, continue to research. Bearish for L2, other L2s? Sure, but bullish for blockchain, bullish for Ethereum in general? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of trying to get back this vision, I think, of what Ethereum is now trying to really hone and be that settlement layer for all these applications. We got Base, now Unichain. I'm really excited to see that it's actually delivering on its roadmap. And we'll have to just see now if Ethereum can, I think, demand enough of these applications and these chains and this activity then to, I guess, bring back that value of Ethereum being that trusted settlement layer that really backs a lot of these crypto primitives, which I'm really excited to see. And hopefully we see a lot more of Unichain come out. It's currently in testnet. They're actually targeting end of year launch on mainnet. So they're not wasting any time at all. And it's actually going to sync up, I think, with the testnet for Mega ETH, which is another big scaling solution for Ethereum. So although Ethereum's really struggled with a lot of narrative at the moment, maybe the ETFs were overpromised. We're starting to see still a lot of building in the core Ethereum community, which I think can be really underrated in terms of everyone looking to the next big R1. It's difficult to really just see how much building's going on in Ethereum land with big names like Uniswap. Where did you want to head to next there, Simon? We got some meme coin craze going on. Maybe we can go there before we get into the big crypto game, because we saw some doxing on crypto wallets here.
I think we've got to talk about Murad because he's obviously such a big player in the space. And I think we've always had in crypto markets these big influential players that come into the space. And I think Murad has definitely become one of those big time players this cycle. His speech at Token 2049 has gotten a huge amount of views. He's talking about memes, and he was fairly eloquent, I feel, and really justified his position well about why meme coins are superior in many ways to what's going on with other projects in the space, mainly because there's no VC backing. So this is basically retail and individual users being able to say, hey, no, we don't want these overvalued projects that you guys are building. We don't want any of that. So I really liked it, and I get it's hard not to be bullish when you listen to him because it was such a good talk. So him being doxxed, I was like, this seems unfair at first, because why go to the effort of trying to find out these guys' wallets? But then on reflection, I've gone, well, he probably deserves it because he is so significantly influencing the space. So people need to know whether he is putting his money where his mouth is or how he's actually going about performing it. And so he has been doxxed. People do know how much he's got in his wallet, and he is walking the walk that he's talking. So that was very promising to see, but now he's under massive scrutiny. Now those wallets are going to be watched. And he's been around the space long enough to also know that if he sells, people will know this now. And that could definitely signal the top for meme coins, maybe entirely, but definitely the meme coins that he's holding would definitely signal the top, and it would be a cascade of sales on the meme coins that he owns. I guess the other interesting thing that I think people need to understand is that everyone sees this meme coin crazy as being, a method to becoming, really rich really fast. And I think the thing to remember about Murad is that he's actually been around crypto for a long time. And so, yes, he now has tens of millions of dollars worth of meme coins, which to many people is going way out the risk curve. But he's made millions of dollars before that to get into the position to make tens of millions of dollars. So, don't try and think that you can replicate him, because he's been doing this for 7 or 8 years now in crypto trading. Was a big Bitcoin maxi for a long time. So he's been around to make a lot of money before. And so now he can go at that risk curve. And now he's done really well for himself, sure. And he's obviously made himself a very prominent figure. But I think individuals trying to replicate that could be very dangerous.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's probably easy to look at them and see, oh, meme coin trading's easy, but you go in and you don't see I guess it's their edge really in the market that he has. He's able to try and identify these early on. That just isn't as easy for the average person to do and hold these things. Because then we see people try and probably copy trade, but in the end, you probably don't have the patience, probably the longevity in the market or the knowledge, and you probably end up selling and buying. And to be honest, probably easy just hodling around and not getting involved too deeply and thinking you're going to be the next Murad in the market. So the one thing I'm really concerned about, though, is, as you talked about, is he the next main character that could potentially go down this cycle? I'm seeing some of his tweets. He's talking about really specific price targets, promises in a way that things are going to go to a certain level. When you start to see probably that extra step of promotion and price targets and promotion, that kind of makes me a bit concerned of like, okay, maybe he is going to be into that, because we all know that no one wants to be the main character in crypto, because eventually, if you're everyone but Justin Sun, you get undone.
Unfortunately, he's the main character, whether he likes it or not now, based off that speech. And as you said, like if he's giving out price targets, I wasn't aware of that one. If he's giving out price targets, then it's even better that he's doxed, because then people can actually follow to see if he's actually being true to that, or whether he's just trying to, rug people. Well, not necessarily rug people, but push the price up to a point where he's already sold out. So good that he's doxed if he's going down that path, but he's a main character, whether we like it or not. He's a big proponent of the meme coin space, and meme coins are a huge narrative and part of this cycle. So you can't deny that, and you can try and ignore it if you want, or if you want to try and make some money from it. There's definitely space in there. It's just risky, but crypto is risky. So who are we to say why it's not a good idea?
Yeah, for sure. Probably the final biggest thing I saw this week in the market was the new Battle Royale game. So it's a new crypto game that hit the game store on Epic Games. And this one actually came out because it attracted so much attention, and I think it actually hit the top charts on the free Epic Games Store. So huge deal here. They actually, I think, partnered with a few influencers, a few streamers that jumped on. I think Ninja was, probably the most well known of these gamers that stream, for payment. That he come out, had a big hooter, a really big launch, and I saw some articles by Forbes actually talking about, a crypto game that could actually be good, which is refreshing for a change. We've had some disappointments in the past. A lot of people have yet to really crack this. And if the game has been good, it's only been, being played by crypto people. So this was the first big game that I saw that gained probably more popularity outside of crypto circles that actually got going. Have you had a chance to check this one out, Simon?
I haven't, but my kind of take on the crypto gaming space is basically written in the title there. It's saying it is actually a crypto game. Or I just want to have a great game that also incorporates crypto. I think when we get to that point, that's probably a better point for crypto gaming in general, when it's a great game. Oh, and by the way, there's actually some crypto elements to it. I think that's probably what's going to be a successful crypto game.
So this is actually built on Avalanche, and it uses Avalanche subnets. So you might have seen Avalanche really promoting this, a lot, especially with some of its other games such as Shrapnel that didn't really take off. But we did see the impact on chain, because I think the games or the NFTs are represented by, the guns, the character, the skins, some of these other tokens. I think you actually get rewarded via kills via cryptocurrency and meeting different weekly challenges. So this was a chart that I saw that created about 4.8 million wallets. since it launched, and we saw a nice tick up in those daily transactions for these Avalanche subnet. So in a way, like how the Avalanche subnets work is you can create your own Avalanche network with your own rules and other things you want to stipulate. But these transactions aren't settled back to Avalanche like L2 settled back to Ethereum. So that's one important difference there. But we did say that, hey, this is really getting a lot of on-chain transactions, a lot of wallet activity, which is super encouraging. My biggest concern here is waiting 2 weeks after the dust settles. A lot of these battle royale games will come to market. They'll be played for a couple of days. We'll see a lot of fanfare. Then after probably the streamers leave, maybe people that were paid to play stop playing. Does anybody actually want to still keep playing it? That's going to be my key thing as we look into the next couple of weeks of, are these users actually sticky, and do people actually want to play it, or was it just another hype, that really faded into the background? Probably heading out now into things to look forward to. FTX creditors were cleared to repay, I think, billions to customers after their bankruptcy was approved. So finally, after a couple of years, actually this has taken a bit quicker than I thought, actually, to be honest, with such a big, sophisticated case. At one point, FTX creditors looked like they weren't going to get any cryptocurrency back. The claims were like 10 cents on the dollar at one point in the very early stages of this. So they're coming out with 118%. Of course, this isn't actually the dollar value. So a lot of people are down very bad considering the bull market and the acceleration of cryptocurrencies like Solana. Unfortunately, people were liquidated basically at the bottom because of this, and their dollar value isn't quite what you may think it was. So little win there that, hey, they're going to get money back. The key thing here is probably isn't going to be the tens of billions to enter the cryptocurrency space. That's maybe some influencers or some people try and make you believe and hype you up, because a lot of this was sold to claims. A lot of it's already been probably paid off, and some is starting to finally hit the wallets for creditors, I think. So look for Q1 and Q2 next year for some of this payment to really start to hit the bank balances for some of these firms.
Yeah, I think it's just good news for people who lost money on the FTX, but I keep trying to say, hopefully this closes the chapter for FTX, but I feel we'll still be talking about it for months, years to come.
Yeah, Sam, I think, is appealing his conviction as well. So he got 20 years for his involvement in the FTX Alameda collapse. So we could probably no doubt hear more about it when he tries to get out of his appeal. I don't know how he's going to do it. He pretty much was a smoking gun from my point of view, and I think he's probably a bit delusional and hoping that he can appeal. But you know what? Probably got nothing to lose for Sam.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. He's got nothing to lose, so he may as well.
And just finishing off things, Matt and I normally do rapid over underappreciated this week. Anything that you felt was over or underhyped in the market, Simon?
I think overhyped is just recent price action. We've seen 5-10% spikes constantly in Bitcoin. So everyone wants to be super bullish, and we see a green candle and everyone gets, yes, it's all happening, it's all starting again. But I think, in my opinion, we've still got to wait till we kind of close above the 70K mark, and we've probably still got to get the US election behind us. So everyone's excited with green candles, but I think we're overanalyzing it. We're being overexcited. I think we've still got a bit of time and US elections to get past before I'll really turn excited about price action.
Yeah, no, there's nothing to get the market in a state of euphoria like a big candle that probably tries to send a fear FOMO going down the spines of people thinking, oh, am I ready or am I not? And that can make people react in very different ways. So that's what I'm looking forward to. As we mentioned at the start, we remain pretty much rage bound in that 25% give or take for the last few months, which is very similar to previous cycles that we've seen. My underappreciated will actually have to go out to Purdue Securities, which is a German firm that issued, I think, $30 million of a bond to expand its Bitcoin holdings. So we got more of these companies that public companies. I was in Japan. There's another company called MetaPlanet. They're following this MicroStrategy playbook of loading up on Bitcoin, preparing for a potential bull run here. So we're starting to see more public companies actually start to issue some debt and then start to buy some cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, with it. So who knows if this is going to be another rejuvenation of the institutions of buying Bitcoin hypothesis, which didn't really play out outside of Square and MicroStrategy, really. But big company, and it's really starting to be very normalized now to actually issue debt or issue bonds to buy Bitcoin and hold them on your balance sheet as a public company, which had a lot of stigma before. No way you would have seen that a few years ago. So that pretty much wraps up the week in crypto. So if you're looking for any more insights, see our revamped weekly Shift newsletter providing free market insights every Friday morning. So subscribe at collectiveshift.io/newsletter. Thanks for joining me, Simon, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, mate.